HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business. Whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing, guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's podcast is sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken audio entertainment and information. Listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Get a free book when you sign up for a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/businessgrowth. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is enjoying inclusion on lists of the best podcasts to listen to on sites, a ton of sites, including MSNBC's Your Business, Inc.com, People First, just to name a couple. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and I'm thrilled that we are being considered a great resource for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals. That's why we're doing this, and it is really because of the guests who come on. These are folks who have expertise in particular areas of business, and they give that expertise. They give their time, they give their expertise, so that all of you can learn the things that you want to and that you can take back in your business. Today, we have such a guest. Today, we are joined by Alex Vorobieff, a highly sought-after speaker, business alignment coach, and the author of Transform Your Business. Alex has helped scores of business owners replace chaos with clarity and finally attain the success they've always imagined. His methods eliminate frustration and find the unique starting line that propels companies past frustration and into success. Alex is the founder and CEO of the Alex Vorobieff Company, a premier business transformation company. Now, he's also launched a magazine and podcast, Confident ROI, to share business leader stories about what tools and concepts are working in the real world so listeners can confidently select the tool that will advance their company. Thanks so much for joining me today, Alex.
Well, thanks for having me on, Diane.
I am thrilled to have you here, and we're going to be talking a lot about being stuck and getting unstuck, and so I'm curious as to why you think some companies stay stuck, like no matter what the leader tries to do?
Well, there's two things. One is kind of how the tendency of how people react when they're stuck, and then there's what I found through my research and working with companies. There's also something hidden within most leaders, and it's actually there's a neuroscience element to it that we can get into. But there's two things. We tend to focus one on the front lines of our business, where the employees are working with customers and suppliers, and it's easy just to constantly be working in the business there. And then two, we're wired not to want to confront reality. There's actually neuroscience behind it. And so we're wired to have a certain view of the world, and when it's necessary for us to question it, our brain really doesn't want to do it from a number of reasons. One of it just takes a lot of energy, and our brain would much rather use shortcuts it already has and blame other things than to use the energy to figure out what's a better way of doing things.
Wow. So it isn't even that, I mean, do we even realize that we're stuck and there's a way out?
It depends. What I found was I'm a finance guy. I started as a CPA and became a cleanup CFO. I just wanted things that worked, and I could understand the numbers, but these business concepts seem to provide, be it, what's the strategy of the company, what's its culture, how's it going to compensate people, how's it going to sell, how's it going to deliver. They're all great concepts, but it's easy to get overwhelmed by them and just kind of not, where do I start? And no one ever talks about the sequence of things. If you got a problem, we'll fix it. Well, maybe is that really the right place to start? If you have a sales problem, is your problem really with the tactics on how you sell it, or is it your product, or is it what you're really trying to solve for your customers? And so that gets people stuck as is, because they tend to kind of go in the wrong sequence, trying to fix the visible problems.
That's really interesting. So this, sometimes I think, like if I think about companies that I know that are totally dysfunctional, sometimes it seems like the leadership knows that they're stuck, knows that there's a problem, but is conflict avoidant, right? Doesn't want to do the difficult, so to speak, work that it would take to actually change things. Is that, a reality?
It's a reality, and there's some neuroscience behind it. And I didn't realize it. I wrote my book that I called it a relationship with feedback, that I noticed, it's not going well, but people didn't really want to deal with it because it can be painful to maybe deal with someone who's not performing, that's been with you for a long time, or just letting someone go. That's painful. Well, from a neuroscience standpoint, the same part of our brain that's active when we're feeling physical pain is the same part with emotional pain. And the same things work with it in terms of pain relief. And our brain is, if anything, is wired to avoid pain.
Yeah.
And so our brain's like, no, let's not do that. I mean, it's just inherent. I had a neuroscientist on, Dr. Dan Radecki, and I was interviewing him and asking him, are we wired to have a bad relationship with feedback? And he confirmed, absolutely. And he knows it. He's a neuroscientist. He's a researcher, a head researcher at Allergan, and he knows all this, and he still has challenges with dealing with feedback, and he knows it all. And so we're all dealing with our brain, but we don't have a manual for it, a user's manual for it. And so it's easy for us to get stuck and go, oh, these things don't work for us. But there's kind of, our brain in some ways is holding us back on that. And that's the real
Yeah, it
starting
seems
line.
like it. Yeah, right. We're our own worst enemy.
We are, and it's just, we have a brain that's really still hundreds of thousands of years old. It's more adapted towards living in a cave and hunting for food than it is to coming in and checking 5 forms of online communication and dealing with different things you can't see, and a lot of different threats that our brain views all threats kind of the same, and it doesn't like being under constant threat.
So, okay, this is so interesting for me. When you look at this and you look at, you know, leaders who are trying, or, you know, companies that are stuck, and you know, what people are doing, are there common mistakes that you see business leaders making when they're trying to actually, you know, go through this improvement process?
Yeah, there's different ones. Some people want to try everything. And I just saw this presentation, I just heard this podcast, let's try it. So that's kind of the wheel spin of just trying everything, and you haven't really worked through maybe what you have. And then there's the other side of the coin, like, none of this stuff's ever worked for us, so I don't want to do anything. So that's that other side of the extreme. But a lot of people are kind of in the middle, where they'll try some things and maybe, and not, things won't go well. Because most business improvement concepts are a series of questions that help you align future decisions and actions throughout your company. But inevitably, you kind of predict, you try to do something, and inevitably it doesn't always come to fruition, especially the first time out. And you got to make adjustments. If you didn't get the result you wanted, what do you adjust so that you can get the result? And that's where most get stuck, is that they're not getting the results, and they don't want to question, okay, what's not working? Is it people? Is it process? Is it product? Is it me? What is not working that we need to adjust there going forward? And it kind of came to, if we have time, I can go into a story about how it kind of came to fruition in my mind, if that works for you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah, I was actually at Disneyland. I was really frustrated. It was a Saturday morning. I was with my wife and daughter, and they could tell I was frustrated. I had a great habit at the time of bringing work home with me. And so my wife and daughter said, we're going to go on a ride. Why don't you finish your coffee? And so I was watching the canoe ride, and it was the river, which just goes around the island. And they said, and I saw the canoe ride pull away from the dock, and I saw the Disney leader, young guy, and he's paddling really hard. I was like, oh, he's getting paid to work out. But I'm like, how long can he do this? Because the people, the Disney guests, some were rowing, a lot of them weren't, and some of the kids were kind of counterproductively rowing. Like, how is he going to do this? And he had someone from Disney in the back, but he got the boat off to the side, and in 90 seconds, he turned around, and he got this motley crew of Disney guests aligned and working together and rowing the boat around Tom Sawyer's Island. And it blew my mind. And he gave them 3 simple rules. He had he got down to where he showed them how to use their paddle. He called it a fun stick. And he showed them, this is where you put one hand here and one hand here. This is how you row. And it's like, so many businesses don't even do that.
Yeah.
They don't. And he told them too, look, we're going to get out of sync during this. And we want to row in sync. And we're going to get out of sync. And so we'll take a break, and we're going to sing, and we'll re-get our rhythm we'll sing some songs and things like that. And he just prepared them for the inevitable. And he also told them, hey, don't splash because other people don't like it, and don't stand up. You know, only a fool stands up, but luckily I'm a trained fool. And he told them the invisible lines and told them where they were trying to go and got them to buy into it that it's the only guest propelled ride at Disneyland. It's been around for 50 years. They just renovated the one in Southern California, so it's going to be around for a while. And it's just it's a real microcosm of a business that if you don't have people in there rowing together in a way to get back on the same page, it gets real dysfunctional really fast.
Boy, no kidding. So what are the things that, I mean, I love that. And the funny thing is I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, wow, and Tom Sawyer was the one who got people to paint a fence for him so that he didn't have to do it. And so it, you know, and that's a story all about leadership. But so if someone's listening and they're thinking, wow, that sounds great, and I'd love to get everybody rowing in the same direction with me, how do they do that? What are the things they need to do to make sure that's happening?
Well, one is answering important questions. And it's if they take a fresh look at business improvement concepts, just with the understanding of, look, it's a series of questions. And we're going to answer these questions kind of from the inside of the company outwards, that they can better communicate what's important. And it's a lot of it I call invisible lines. What's important if you're going to be on this boat? And breaking it down to simple sort of process like that, I always recommend Patrick Lencioni, who wrote 5 Dysfunctions Team. He also wrote a book called The Advantage. And it's got 6 questions that they're very simple. And when you address them, you just you go through them. It's like one of the questions: what's most important right now? And can you imagine having a team where 2 or 3 of the leaders have different answers to that, even slightly different answers? That their people inevitably, their time, they're going to be in contrast with each other. How do you get working together to get clearer answers so that at least you guys are rowing in the same direction?
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Okay. Okay. So just hang on one second, because I really like this. And I don't think people realize how often the people who are working for them are getting different messages and still trying to figure out what it is they're supposed to be doing to help the organization move forward.
If you ask the questions, have people within the company, depending on the size of the company, have them just answer their questions, have someone ask the questions, and because you write it, people kind of just get that flow of consciousness and have that pulled together. And you'd be shocked. Most companies, you're going to, by default, not going to be on the same page. And if you can see, like, okay, here's where people think, wow, there's a gap. What if we just brought it closer together, at least started having those conversations? It brings it closer together. Now, it also brings out the other thing we talked about earlier, that relationship with feedback. So people might not want to see that why does this company exist? And people have different opinions on that. And different, because it's never been defined, people have defined it their own way. Or what does this company really do? That's going to be feedback they might not want, but that's where you're starting from. And if you can't handle the feedback that's not what you wanted, like, guys, I thought I made it clear it was this, but people have gone in different directions. It's bringing the team and trying to find what is that common bond, what is the answer to that question that's hasn't been answered, and dealing with the feedback that you didn't want to hear. And if you don't want, I talk about in chapter 2 of my book, if you don't want to deal with the feedback, if what I call emotional no-fly zones, certain things are off limits to discuss, then nothing's going to work.
Right.
So you can save your time and money, and it can be the greatest concept idea out, and there's so many great business concepts out there. If you're not, they all assume you have a great relationship with feedback, that if something doesn't work, you're going to be willing to adjust so you get the results you want. If you don't have that relationship with feedback, that's okay, but just you're going to have, don't expect you can't buy your way out of it by investing in a consultant or a concept.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you just said that, because funny, I was going to ask you about this relationship with feedback, because I agree. You have to be able to really hear, solicit feedback, want to get the feedback and really listen to it, because it feels to me like that's the way you get the best solutions from anybody or everybody, because everyone is thinking because they know they're being listened to.
It's listened to, and what does Google and Facebook do besides monitor us? they use data, and what does that mean? Is they're looking what works, what doesn't work. And hey, lists work. People like lists of 5 things. They like these type of videos. They're constantly looking for what works. They're not wrapped up in, well, that wasn't my idea, or that's their idea. It's what works. And so they have a relationship with feedback. It's like, I'm just looking for what works. And they've done a great job on that. And they, Amazon, they're all monitoring us to see what works on us. And the rest of the business world, we tend to, hey, we don't like that, or that's not my view of the world. And so we don't necessarily embrace it as fast as technology. They embrace what works.
Yeah, that is interesting. You're right, they do. And this whole data, we have a tendency to look at it negatively because we feel like they're pulling all this information about us. But when you think about it the way you were just talking about it, they're getting feedback so they can see what works and doesn't, so they can continue to offer the things that their customers want.
Yeah, and they only get paid if they can deliver what their customers want. And they're trying.
Yeah.
And what they're really selling is we're figuring out people. We're really figuring out what they like and don't like. And so that's pretty powerful. It's shown to be pretty powerful from a monetary standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. So if someone is listening and they're feeling like they don't even know where to start or what to do, how do they cultivate a healthy relationship with feedback? Like how do they develop that?
It's taking an inventory, and it's similar to mindfulness training. It's very popular now, and just paying attention. And I always recommend pay attention, keep a journal, and pay attention to throughout the week or month when things don't go according to plan. How do you react? Do you if you got a project's going to be late or over budget, or there's a problem with a customer that could have been prevented, and just things didn't go according to plan, listen to your inner voice. How are you handling that? Are you saying, oh, are you trying to analyze for the root cause of it, or are you starting to blame things? Oh, that's that person, or it was just the weather, or you get angry about it, or you deny it's a problem. Kind of just try to avoid it. If it's a more emotional and statement-based, if you're writing down a lot of statements like that person is wrong versus a question, are you asking questions? Well, why did this happen? Why did we have this problem with this customer? If you're doing more question-based, you probably have a healthier relationship with feedback. They're objective questions. So that's the first step, is trying to figure that out. And the next step is, once you've got kind of a sense of what it is, think about what people around you, how they would describe it. How would they describe your relationship with feedback? And if you think about that, because and get your ideas down, and then go ask them. And you might hope, if you have the relationship, if you have a good relationship with feedback, they'll probably tell you, even if it's not, even if you don't have but if you don't, they're probably not likely to tell you. And that's where it helps to have someone else ask. Usually your spouse is going to tell you if they really sense you really want to know, even if it's not what they want to do. But that's where a third party to bring it out, because a lot of people, there's some neuroscience here as well, in terms of our amygdala is our emotional part of our brain. Under constant stress, it gets really empowered. And the part of our brain, they call the executive brain, the prefrontal cortex, it loses some of its power. It actually shrinks. And its job is to control the emotional part of the brain. And so business leaders tend to be under a lot of stress. And so the emotional part of their brain's getting stronger. And when things don't go according to plan, the amygdala reacts. And that's where you get what they call career limiting behaviors. And, and sometimes, like my wife and daughter know when I'm get to have some stress that I don't always respond well to things. So they don't want to tell me certain things.
Yeah.
And but I need to hear it. And that's an important part of it. So we got the neuroscience of it. And so if you say your amygdala is really strong, now all of a sudden you go, hey, I want to hear your feedback. People are like, most of the time you don't want to hear our feedback. So they're going to be held back. That's where it helps to have someone else come in and ask the questions and triangulate that relationship, because that's the number one key. I study business concepts, and that's what I wrote about in my book, Transform Your Company and What's the Right Order. But they all assume the leader's got this good relationship with feedback, or that they can suddenly develop it while they're trying to transform their company, which is a big challenge.
I'll bet.
And I see a lot of great, I've talked with a lot of great consultants and a lot of business leaders, and there's been a lot of tough situations that could have been avoided, that before they started up this mountain to transform a company. It's like, look, Bill's got a really bad relationship with feedback. Let's deal with this now before we have everybody going for stretch goals and trying to change the company, that he doesn't want to hear that something's not working right, or that something close to him that has been off limits, that we need to examine. Hey, maybe this person or this product, they're not working. If he doesn't want to deal with it, it's a lot easier to deal with it at the base of the mountain than on the side of the hill.
Okay. I got a bunch of questions closing around my head, so I'm going to take a sponsor break and then get into them. Okay.
All right.
Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is happy to be sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken digital audio entertainment and information. They have over 150,000 titles to choose from, and you can listen to them on any device, including whatever you're hearing us on right now. If you sign up at our link, which is audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, you get one free audiobook and a 1-month trial of the service. Some examples of books you can listen to on audible.com are Transform Your Company by our guest today, Alex Vorobieff, and The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients by David A. Fields. So visit audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, explore the books that are of interest to you, and receive one free audiobook when you sign up for the trial. Today we are speaking with Alex Vorobieff about why we get stuck in business and how we can get unstuck. So, Alex, you very clearly said if someone can't develop a healthy relationship with feedback, they're not necessarily going to be able to get unstuck. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. What do they do about ensuring that their company is successful? Do they step down? I mean, is there anything that can happen there?
Sure. It's a matter of one is the severity, and is the person open to it? But it gets again to the mindfulness training, and it parallels it. And there's probably, it's similar parts of the brain where you don't want to use your amygdala, and you want to use your prefrontal cortex more. But it's one they can work with a coach, oftentimes like their Vistage coach, if they're in a peer group. It's one is just recognizing there's an issue. If they didn't realize they had a poor relationship with feedback, for a lot of people, it's eye-opening. And it's probably not been just in the business aspect of their life. So sometimes that's just a catalyst in itself. But two, it's working with a coach, either someone they're already working with, or that's something I do with clients as well, is just helping them start to pay attention to those situations and use them in a positive light in terms of, okay, this project is late and it's over budget. Why? And using that as a process to look for the root cause and develop a healthy relationship with feedback. It's not going to happen overnight, depending on the severity, but it can happen. I mean, there's a lot of things being done where people who were stress balls, who had an overactive amygdala, thanks to mindfulness, meditation practice, and training, which is just training your brain. There's neurological science, and they can show you the brain scans of meditators and people who aren't meditating, and as well as people who start. Okay, what are the changes in the executive portion? It's kind of ironic they call it the executive portion of the brain. Starts to get more active. There's more blood flow there. There's more activity, and you can develop that over time, but it does take time, and don't expect it to happen overnight, and be prepared. Have a way that one of the most powerful things is getting your team to the point where they trust you enough that they can tell you, hey, you're sliding back, or you're not listening. We're trying to give you some objective feedback. We in my magazine, we interviewed someone who implements EOS, and she had implemented it in her business. And one of the persons she worked with, it was called the dictator, and she was really frustrated. She didn't get any feedback from her team, but they developed the trust amongst the team that they could give her the feedback, and that changed everything for that company. And it was the relationship with feedback. And one of it was teaching the team members what's the best way to communicate with the leader, and vice versa, because they had different communication styles. So there's different ways to unlock that.
That is so interesting. And I think that's got to be one of the hardest things, is to develop that trust so that people will be honest and tell you, because people get used to a certain pattern of behavior, and it's hard to turn that around.
It's hard to turn it around, and for the person, the leader, as well as people around it, because a lot of times it comes down to, hey, do I want to risk my job? Am I willing to move my kids' high schools because I don't like the way the leader handles it when we're over budget? Yeah, it's really painful, and I complain about it a lot, but no, I'm not going to make that risk. And their brains are telling them, hey, avoid the pain. Avoid the pain. That's the easiest way, is avoid pain. So it takes that until it's open and they feel safe enough to do that, it's most likely going to stay the same. I mean, how many stories are there of companies that went from dysfunction to spontaneous alignment, and like things worked? You generally only hear about, hey, things didn't work and they got worse, or things were working and then all of a sudden we kind of slid out of it. But you just never sometimes company gets lucky, and oh, hey, we had this product that somebody wanted and we didn't even realize it, and wham. But they often can't do that over a long period of time where they get lucky. You have to develop skills to keep evolving I think like Intel's an example of that. They were in the memory chip business originally, weren't even in the business they're in. They had to keep evolving product types to keep up with an industry that was evolving very quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of companies aren't able to do that and don't exist anymore.
They don't. And
Yeah.
that's, and sometimes it's comfortable, right? Well, we're getting this much revenue and we're growing still a little bit, and they're really not have a risk of obsolescence. But
Yeah.
in today's world, is anything really safe?
No.
I mean, somehow, some way, people are gonna, there's products out there that are competing with what you offer.
Absolutely. It is so much more competitive. Now, you mentioned a minute ago that the EOS system, and it feels like there's a lot of these systems out there, right? There's EOS, Scaling Up, Great Game, eMyth, blah, blah, blah. Can you talk some about, what they are and how they work, and do they work for anybody, or do different ones work for different personality types? Like, what's the story?
Sure. Well, I came across them again as I clean up businesses and get their finances in order. I realized, geez, there just seemed like there was unanswered questions. And I came across the EOS concept, and I had come across an independent providers ones years before and tried to use him, but he was retiring. So I came across EOS, and it was really a series of questions, from why does the company exist, what are its core values, to what's its strategy, how does it differentiate itself, to what's it expect to happen this quarter, this year, over the long term, what are its objectives, and who's responsible for what. So it's answering these series of questions. And so I was recommending it to clients years ago. To one of my clients asked me, is it the best system? And it hit me right between the eyes. I didn't even know what to call it. I mean, what was this thing? I mean, it's not really a planning system. It's much more dynamic, and it's not a management system, because that's just going to bore everyone to death. And it doesn't really manage. It's also helping you envision the company. And so that started me on the process. That's one of the things that started on the book was, what are these? What is it? And as I started researching, that's when I found Scaling Up, and I found Great Game of Business. But there was no name for these. And when I went to business school, we didn't talk about these sort of systems. And so I read a lot of them, and I kept hearing this term in my head, alignment. And sure enough, when I started searching it, word searching, one of the great benefits of Kindle, you can word search. A lot of them use either alignment, same page, consistent, focus. We're all sort of synonyms, and it's really focus and alignment around answers to key questions. And that's what Scaling Up does. That's what eMyth does. Now, what the differentiation is eMyth is more for a company earlier on in its startup, maybe not with much of a developed leadership team. Where Scaling Up's on the other side, where you have most likely a leadership team that's chomping at the bit, that's looking to grow, that wants some brain strain to figure the best tools so they can grow as fast as possible. And then you have EOS, which is a little more accessible and probably more of a transition in between eMyth and Scaling Up. And Scaling Up's been focusing more on the more sophisticated middle market, where EOS has been on both the small and the mid-size market.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's what chapter 3 in my book defines. I call it the missing business school subject, and what these systems are and their commonalities, and that, breaking them down, just they're great. I love them. It's just for the right business. The big assumption is they all assume the leader's got a great relationship with feedback. Because you do scaling up or EOS, you're going to set your 5-year target, your 1-year target, and your quarterly objectives. Inevitably, you're not going to achieve them all, especially if you're pushing yourself or the company. So what are you going to change? They all assume you're willing to, okay, do we need to change how we're selling it, or who's selling it, or what we're selling? And that's when you start getting into the emotional no-fly zones that, hey, we're not going to start changing people or roles, or we're not going to start changing what we're offering customers, or we're not offering them. A lot of times companies are offering too many things.
Right. That's right. Well, they're afraid that if they don't, they'll miss out on a piece of business.
Well, yeah, it's a common thing for an entrepreneur is someone wants this. And some of the great business concepts, hey, originally a customer asked for it. But there's also, okay, if we say yes to this, what are we saying no to? Or if this is really a great opportunity, should we focus more on it? And maybe less on something else? And those are those core questions that typically aren't asked and answered, but that's what a core alignment tool can help you do.
Okay, so what's the difference between a core alignment tool and a bolt-on tool?
Sure. Core alignment was those things we talked about earlier, EOS, scaling up, great game of business, E-Myth. Bolt-on tools are, for the most part, what your audience hears about all the time. Hey, how to improve your sales techniques, how to do marketing on Facebook, how to hire people, how to compensate them, what's your strategy, how are you going to, what key things are you trying to do and differentiate your product or your company, or what's your branding strategy? All these little individual things I call bolt-on tools, because they work with your core alignment tool, but they're just very specific. And a lot of times with EOS and traction and scaling up, they utilize these bolt-on tools. And because they can't ask every question, because that's what these tools are, the bolt-on tools. They're just asking really detailed questions about specific things, such as a company strategy, and helping you define that.
I see. Okay, I get that. That makes sense. Okay.
And that's where people, they're bombarded with these things, and they might not have compensation plans, and they might not have really defined why the company exists, and they don't really have it clearly defined what things does a frontline employee do. And so they're choosing between 3 things, but they'll often choose what's closest to the customer instead of what's farthest, which would be, hey, why does this company exist? But it's a lot easier to answer questions like, what's our strategy, or what people are trying to hire, when we're really clear on why does this company exist, and what kind of culture do we want. Those decisions are a lot easier when you answer those core questions first.
Yeah, boy, I totally get that. And it's so funny. You're talking about that, and I'm thinking about organizations that I have known where the program of work, the things that they were doing weren't tethered to anything. So if you said, okay, why are you doing that? What is that? What big goal is that helping you achieve? They couldn't answer it because they were just doing things. They didn't have that grand vision of, this is why we exist, this is who we are, this is the value that we're bringing, the difference we're making, whatever it is, and then made decisions based on that. A lot of companies do it backwards.
They do. It's not required to do it from the inside out. There's a natural tendency to pull us towards the outside and come from the outside and really stay on the outside. I call it the perimeter of the business, because that's where the pain is. And we want the pain to stop. So, okay, let's go there and focus our energy on that. And that's where, it can actually make it worse.
Right. Right. Yeah. It feels to me like then we're focusing on a symptom, not the disease.
And that's exactly it. I mean, that's why I got out of just doing the finance cleanup work, because it's all symptoms.
Yeah.
And in the medical, in the healthcare world, they know that they just treat symptoms, and that's part of the problem.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody really wants to hear, hey, you want the pain to go away and to feel better, you got to change the way you eat and live. Those are hard things to do.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to like, well, can't you just give me something, or can I go somewhere and then I'll just feel better? It's like, no, you gotta answer what's important to you, and change habits that
Right.
over time will manifest themselves. It's not going to be overnight.
Yeah, you have to be willing to do the work and have a healthy relationship with feedback, right? You have to be able to hear it.
Yeah. But people don't like getting on the scale. It's like,
Right.
it's just a number. It's you can say, well, it's this time of day or that or whatever. It's just a number, and people fight the scale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just our brain.
Yeah. But it's a data point.
It's a data point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is so great. So I can first have to say how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. It is wonderful, and it just really highlights the valuable information that is in your book, Transform Your Company. So will you tell the listeners how they can get the book, how they can find out about your podcast, everything
Sure.
you want to tell them?
Absolutely. Well, the book's available on audible.com, my favorite form of digesting books. So I know it's a sponsor of the show. So check it out on audible.com as well as Amazon. And then I did a magazine to bring the concepts in the book to life. The book is a framework for what we've talked about today, and bringing some order to the universe of business improvement ideas. The magazine and podcast, I talk to business leaders who are trying these business concepts and find out, hey, is it working or not? So that other business leaders can confidently decide, hey, should I try this concept, and am I going to get an ROI? And so that's available at confidentroi.com. You can sign up for the magazine and also link to the podcast, and as well as at alexvorobieff.com, spelled just like it sounds. You can find my podcast as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough. Everyone, you should really go out and get the book, because it will give you valuable information. You can tell from this conversation. We all need to be able to take a clear, honest look at how we're doing, what's going on, and embrace feedback so that we can be doing better things. We're just, you got to do it. So.
It really helps in all aspects of your life. And I share a story in the book about how I had a poor relationship with feedback, and someone confronted me with it. And it was a key event in my life. And I can say life's a lot better with a good relationship with feedback.
Absolutely. That's so great. And it's funny, because as we were talking, I was thinking, boy, you could use this in any area of your life, not just your business. You can.
Well,
anybody.
It's funny. I've gotten a lot of from people who are involved in nonprofits, and I think it almost applies even more, because if you're not there for the financial compensation, you're there for the emotional compensation. And if you're just in a dysfunctional organization, you're not getting paid. Like, why are you there?
Yeah.
And I think it applies to families as well. A lot of times people just assume everyone in the family has the same answers to important questions, and they're different generations. They got different takes on things.
Yeah.
And so the last thing is, I think in the future book, I'm going to write how it applies to society.
Ooh, Wow, that's daring of you.
I think it's out there. We can liberate ourselves from kind of these dysfunctional worlds we live in, and it really comes down to questions and working with people who have common answers.
Yeah.
And not everyone's got the same answers to things.
Exactly. Right. And you have to not only be willing, but really interested in hearing their answers instead of just assuming that you know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Wow. Great. Well, let me know when you write that one. I'd like to read that one as well. Wonderful. And thank you, listeners. I am confident that you got an awful lot out of this, because I did. So I'm pretty sure you did too. And I'd like to thank our sponsor. Remember, you can get a free trial and a free audiobook from audible.com by visiting audibletrial.com/businessgrowth. Continue to prosper and be curious and be willing to receive feedback. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Are you tired of the same old productivity hacks? Have you read the top 20 books on effectiveness, and yet your workdays and email inbox still causing anxiety, burnout, and even depression? Ready to learn the latest in brain-based modalities, techniques, and technologies to optimize your success and well-being? Welcome to the Focus to Evolve podcast, where we'll illuminate your path to spacious productivity and balanced thriving. Each week, we dive into deeply insightful and immediately impactful methods to help you become highly effective while promoting health, profitability, and well-being. Say goodbye to the trance of busyness and hello to your highest potential. It's time to discover a new way of accelerating your mission, growth, and purpose. Join us on the Focus to Evolve podcast and get ready to live your most joyful, productive, and fulfilling life.